Welcome back, CSE 235, to part 5 of our Flask intro. And this, again, will just focus on Bootstrap just a little bit of modifications with Bootstrap, just because in the last video I kind of ran through something real quick and I finished it off and it didn't look really good. And the code that I did didn't really work well because I had two navs and stuff. So I just want to correct that and just show you how you can make some basic modifications to your Bootstrap. And again, Bootstrap is something that you need to take a lot of time with and learn with and find resources. Just the get Bootstrap, I don't find this very helpful. So there's other places where you have to go sometimes. I mean, it makes sense when you look at it, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. So here's a couple things I just want to show you here. When I looked at these, I was getting the impression that I had to put another nav class on the original one. And you don't. You only want one nav. So that was my mistake on that. So when I go to my code here, and let me just show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like now. I think that's kind of where I left it off at. A black background. That's green. I wasn't crazy about that being green, but you can change that. That's success. That's what that color is called, success. But let me just show you a couple things to change this. For one thing, in your nav, you should only have one nav. So there, I had two, so make sure you just have one nav class in the beginning, and then you could put whatever you want in here. And at the bottom, there should just be one nav. So I had two on those, so I cleared them out. And what I have here so far is just navbar. That's the navbar class. And I have BG dark, which means the text is going to be white. That's what BG dark will do. It sets up kind of a light text. And I have navbar expand LG. I left that in there. And then there's also databs theme dark. So that creates this dark theme over here with this being dark over here. So it's kind of set up okay, but if you wanted a different color, for example, you could go in here and instead of BG dark, you could go BG primary. Now BG primary, just like it was showing here, will still keep the type white. So it's still kind of that scheme. So you can use BG primary. So let's just look at that. Let's just start, and I see it's primary. And if I go up here and I refresh it, now I get primary. Now I still have that green color there, and I still have this black background, which I may not want, but let me just show you what you could do here. Even if you went here to the search, and I'll just go here and inspect and see what that thing is. It's button outline success. So it's doing an outline of green. So I want to make sure it's not green. So I'm going to change that. So where can I do that? Well, I can look for button outline and change success. I'll look for where the button is. Here it is, success, and it's green right now. Now I'm going to change it to light. You can't use white. I'm going to change it to light and see what happens there. And I'll stop this, run it, and I'll go here and refresh it. Okay, that actually looks like the way I want it. That worked out pretty well. So I fixed that. Now, if you wanted this search to be different than black is a little harsh here. Let's say you wanted a dark blue. Well, you could go here and search and see what this thing is. Well, I already have my inspect open, so I could go down here and kind of hover over this. And I see it's called form control. When I go in here, I look at this code and I see form control. And I'm looking at the styles here and I'm seeing some things where color and background color, there's a variable they're using there, and a border color. And even if I just want to change the background color to maybe like a dark blue, what I could do is go in here. Now, keep in mind, this is not the correct way to do it because we're working in Flask. If you keep watching the video with Corey, when you start using CSS styles, you have to create a static folder and you have to set up the path correctly. But just as a quick shortcut, we can put it right into the layout HTML right now, and you could do it just with inline. Well, this isn't inline, but you could do it with internal CSS. So if I go here and I just make a style, and that means this will be closest to everything. I'll hit Style, Tab. So I could just put some internal styles in here. And one thing I could do is the one was called, I think, Form Control. Form Control. And I could do background color and try and change it. So let me see if I could do that. I'll go in here and I'll do .form control. So I'm almost kind of modifying it. Form Control. And I'll do background color. And I'm not going to look up any other colors right now. I'll just put in dark blue. And that should change the background color to that. So let's stop that and run it. And we'll go over here and refresh it. and that's dark blue. And what if you wanted this dark blue instead of the primary color right now? Can you do that? Well, yeah, you can actually give a custom class. Now, again, you would normally do this through the CSS, but because we're kind of trying to work around Flask right now, we're not working with Flask, we're working around it. You could go in here and make a new style called BG, and you want to make a name that doesn't already exist. So I'm going to do BG, I'll call it dark blue. And it's coming up background color dark blue. But if you start typing it, and then you put in dark blue, you can use this. Now, I'd have to replace this because it's using background primary, but I can actually use background dark blue. Let's see if this works. I'll stop it. I'll run it. That looks good. And I'll go here. It's funny, just doing some things with Bootstrap, once you start working with it, you know, and you could kind of have control over it, it feels a little better. But until you do that, until you read through all the documentation and you watch some videos on it, it can be very confusing. So that's kind of neat. I mean, I like that dark blue. This looks good. The only thing I don't like is if I go to here, that's very light and I'm losing the outline. Now, again, you could check it out. You could go here and, well, we haven't spec'd on. So let me use this little arrow here and see what this is. It's called Toggler Icon. And then there's Navbar Toggler. Let me just click on it and see if I could see some styles down here. I don't want it to go away. Navbar Toggler. And it's saying color, it's giving like a transparent color, not background. Background color is transparent, you can leave it transparent. But the color, it's a variable there and it looks kind of transparent. So if we change that to like a white color, even if we change the border color to white, we could kind of override those. So maybe we could get a nicer looking toggler here. So let's go find toggler. Close this up. And let's move this over and let's look for toggler. Now that should be at the end of all our nav stuff here. There's our form control that we changed. And there's that button outline light that we changed from success, so it's not green. And we're looking for toggler. There we go. Navbar Toggler Icon. Navbar Toggler. So let's just do Navbar Toggler. I could just copy this. And we can make kind of override it a little bit. And again, whatever you put in here will override what already exists. I mean, it won't override everything, it'll add to it. I guess that's what I should say. So let's put a dot, I'll paste that Navbar Toggler. And maybe I do have to do something with the icon, but right now I'll just do that. And I'll put color, and I can put white. Now remember, when you're in here, you can't put primary and those things. That's part of the class name, so you can't use that when you're specifying a color. So you have to put a real color, white or the hex or whatever you need to do. So color white, and then I think it was also outline or border color. I think we can do border color. Border block color? I'll try that. I used border color, but let's try border block color, and we'll put white and see if that changes it. So that way, if there's already a Navbar Toggler there, we don't have to replace it. Because there was no BG dark blue, we had to replace that from the primary one that was there. So let's see what happens here. And it looks okay a little bit from there, but let's go to the regular page. I'll refresh it, and let's bring this in and see how it looks. And I don't like that. Something's wrong with it. So let me go back and do what I did. I think I did just border color. Let me just try border color for Navbar Toggler. And I'll stop. I'll run. I'll go here. I'll refresh it. And see if this looks... That looks a little better. I think the icon maybe I could change too, because it looks like the icon's kind of not... The icon's not white. So we could try the icon. Not a big deal here. This will be the last thing, but if I go down and find that icon color, I think there was a class of icon. Remember, these are all classes. Toggler icon. So let me just copy that. Let me just try it. copy that. I'll go up here. And again, this is all internal styles, meaning they're internal into the HTML page, which we don't usually do. We do them external into an external CSS. But again, because Flask has some additional requirements to do that, if we were just working with Bootstrap and not in Flask, you could just go into your CSS file and put this stuff in here and do it that way. But again, I'm learning this stuff as I go here with some of this. But we'll put in this. We'll make sure we put our dot there so we have it the actual class. Navbar toggler icon. And let me just put color white and see if that makes that toggler thing a little better. So I'll stop. I'll run it. And we'll know right away, I don't think it changed. That thing there, I don't think it changed. And I'm not sure if it's actually using an icon image or what it is, but I'd have to look at it a little bit more. But let me just go back and refresh this. And there's other things we could work with here. But either way, that looks better. It certainly looks better than we had. Oh, now it's getting this big, thick white after it's clicked. I don't know if I like that. But either way, we're kind of working with this a little bit. Yeah, that looks better there, but it's getting a real thick look to it. And maybe it does, and maybe it's just more noticeable now that it's white. When it was the kind of subdued color, you didn't notice it. So maybe that's the issue there, me changing it white. So I'd have to look into that a little bit more, the navbar toggler that I'm doing. But here we got to modify this top a little bit and modify this search. And sometimes it's digging around. Now, is it worth it doing all that? It all depends. If you're going to invest into Bootstrap, you're going to want to know all those little tricks and learn how to modify it and, download all the resources so you can actually do the CSS. And then you'd want to learn Sass, which is actually a shortcut for CSS files. It's actually a way where they have variables and it makes it a little more easier to update. But again, you have to learn something else. And Sass doesn't take a long time to learn. It's just something else to learn. So there's only so many things you could learn with web development. Every day there's something new that somebody knows and you don't, or somebody's using and you're not using. So it can be a little frustrating at times, but at least we could adjust this nav bar a little bit. And if you continue with the Corey video, he does some other things where he has snippets of code. And sometimes, copying code and pasting it in isn't a bad idea because you can analyze it and see what's going on there. So he has some customized code that he makes a sidebar that he does for the blog and so on. But I'm going to stop here. So this part 5 is definitely the last, at least for the Flask blog exercise that we're doing with Bootstrap. So I just want to throw that in and just show you some things in Bootstrap of how to modify it. Again, this isn't the correct way to do it. You would probably do this in your external CSS to kind of override this a little bit. If you ever worked with WordPress, we do this a lot. We kind of override existing classes that are there. But if you could go in and modify some in here as well, that's fine too. So anyway, that's modifying our Bootstrap styling in our Flask exercise, part 5.